This is Sporting Life.
Well, welcome along to the Sporting Life Racing Podcast, Randox Grand National Week. A fantastic week on the racing calendar, one that comes with the usual challenges. We're going to preview the 3 days in the company of Graham Cunningham, Ed Chamberlain, Billy Nash, and Timeform's Phil Turner, who knows more about the Grand National than most of us have forgotten. Ed, it's a national that's different again. There are changes made to this year's race. How are you feeling going into it?
Really looking forward to it, Dave. It is wet here. My God, I've been out this morning, got here about 8:30 because I wanted to see the start. And it does look different, actually. The start's in the same place, but obviously the fence has moved near it. So it's a strange sight, really. But yes, the build-up has been dominated by that. I think racing's done really well so far, Audie. And being on the front foot, I think, is so important. And that website, the BHA have set up, is a massive thing for all of us, I think. It's really going to be important for me in the next 3 days. Answers a lot of questions. And I think that's a real asset. And yeah, it's going to be a nervy 10 minutes. It's going to be more than 10 minutes this year with the ground like that, I think, this year. But really looking forward to it. In the 3 days, honestly, this could be one of the best Aintree meetings for a very long time, I think.
Fantastic, Carl. We're going to talk about all 3 days. GC, we were talking about a reduced field size. Your Cunningham file still available on Sporting Life Features. Well worth reading. We talked about reduced field size, standing start, moving the first fence. And yet the biggest factor of all does look like it's going to be the going on Saturday.
Absolutely. But I think one of the real genius moves is moving the off time from 5:15 to 4 p.m. because it gives it 75 minutes less time to piss down. And every bit of my form study, to be serious, is going to be centered around the ground being very, very testing. I think this angle has been underplayed in the media for whatever reason. I think if they ran the National today or tomorrow, it's raining at the moment, I think they'd struggle to get 10 finishes myself. Now, Friday and Saturday, and maybe tomorrow as well, Thursday, promise to be better days. So there is time for conditions to improve a little. But for the start of the meeting, if you focus on horses who are very strong stayers, who can handle deep ground, you won't be going too far on.
And Phil, we've had a piece from John Ingalls using the Timeform essay on Red Marauder, heavy ground Grand Nationals. There haven't been that many, but there have been similar themes whenever there has been one.
Yeah, I must admit, I mean, that is the great fear, really, is the ground. I mean, I'm like Ed, I'm really looking forward to the meeting as well. Looks really good horses, but given that the Grand National is our shop window, and that, you know, that can be a double-edged sword, can't it? Obviously, it's great when we get good news stories, and I'll be amazed if we got 10 finishes given the sort of predicted rain. I mean, I was in the area yesterday. The water coming down was just unreal, and that is the fear. I mean, it's like, you know, that's our advert. If you just see having exhausted horses running around, it's not a great sell, is it? And yeah, I would hope if you ever got conditions like the Red Marauder, it would be called off. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But if we have the same conditions, I hope they're brave enough to call it off, because it really shouldn't have gone ahead that year. And they got very lucky that there was that incident, the first canal turn, and they were going so slow from halfway. That sort of helped them sort of get round. If you'd had a normal race, I think it could be some pretty unedifying scenes late on with them. And it's unfair putting the onus on the jockeys in that situation. I think the modern day jockeys are very good. They've probably been leaned on. You see nowadays, if they're on a horse out sort of towards the end and it's tired, it's out of contention, they pull it up. You know, they're not looking for the badge of honour of just completing the national course, which would have happened in years gone by. They're very good at pulling up when they're out of contention, but you know, you could get a scenario where they're in third or fourth and the horse is very tired, and like, what do you do? Pull up, or, you know, try and make it jump the second last or last. So, you know, hopefully it doesn't get that far. I hope I'm not being too doom laden, but I think the big talking point will be the ground.
If you're not being too doom laden there, Phil, I wouldn't like to hear when you are.
Wait till we get on to Friday's action. Wait till we get on to Friday. No, we're going to start looking at the great race now. Ed Chamberlain, back-to-back winners are a rarity. Tiger Roll, the first since Red Rum. Cormac Rambler, yay or nay?
Yay with my heart. He'd be a great winner for the sport, for ITV, for everybody, really, with his connections. And the young lad, Cameron Sword, is such an asset for our sport, already getting youngsters involved. I was chatting to him the other day about the micro shares he's doing for students. I mean, it would just be a fabulous winner. But I love the horse. I backed him in the Gold Cup, as you know. And I thought 2 out, he was going to win the Gold Cup. I really did. And he finished absolutely legless up the hill. He was exhausted. I love him. I don't like the price. and he was a tired horse in the Gold Cup. So heavy-heartedly a nay, unfortunately.
Billy, I know you'll be looking to tip a British horse. Selections to come later on in the podcast. Vanillier, second last year. Any chance of it reversing form?
There has to be a chance, Ardy. He has certainly been campaigned absolutely with a second tilt at the National in mind. I think he's got a 9-pound pull with Carrick Rambler, so that will certainly bring him into the equation. But one thing that I wasn't really banking on, and it was thanks to the tremendous Cunningham file that I read during the week.
Thank you.
Horses that finished second in the National coming back the following year. I didn't realise they had such an appalling record until I read Graham's piece. So that would certainly just be a little bit of food for thought, I think, for anyone who's considering backing Vanillier. Apart from that, he does seem to have a really live chance.
Vanillier's got a live chance. I Am Maximus, GC, beat him in the Bobby Joe Chase, which has been a good pointer to the race in recent years. And Paul Townend won an Irish National on him. He's back on board on Saturday.
Yeah, quite interesting that Mark Walsh has chosen Limerick Lace from, is it, quintet of McManus runners. If he wins, I lose. Call me old-fashioned. I still don't like erratic jumpers in the National, and he is an erratic jumper. He can do 45 degrees to the left when he's in that sort of mood. His running power is formidable, no question about that. His stamina seems pretty much assured, although this promises to be a real extreme test. But I don't like horses who jump like he does in the National, so I'm not surprised that Mark Walsh has looked elsewhere. If I watch the race and he jumps half a dozen pretty well, I'll start to get worried. But I think it's going to be very tricky as to where to put him in the race. I think he will get back. That's not a major problem to me. It's just a case of survival on ground like this. Do you put him back on the inside and hope he can avoid jumping left, or do you park him out wide and hope that he doesn't start, jumping across other horses? I think it's a tricky equation all round. So if you're approaching the National and you haven't got half a dozen fancy horses who you don't like, you're not doing the job right. And he's high on my list of horses that I won't be backing.
And Phil, our erstwhile colleague Graham North, his jumpability ratings, he goes through the jumping of horses. He was the one he's got a big warning flag against, I Am Maximus.
Yeah, I mean, that is the case. I'm pretty similar to what Graham said. If there is one horse who was perhaps going to win it by, a dozen lengths, it could be him, because I think he's one of those horses who, if he gets the right sort of scenario, can post a sort of monster racing. I mean, obviously that defeat of Vanillier last time was hugely impressive, and he beat the Arkle runner up on his reappearance when he possibly wasn't cherry ripe either. So there's a huge engine there, and I guess there is always a danger over analyse these things. He did win the Irish National last year, and he's got Willie Mullins and Paul Townend on your side, so I'm sure he'll be popular. But I'm with Graham. I remember Total Recall I really fancied from a form viewpoint a few years ago, and he made 2 absolute howlers on the way around. And they might be easier fences, but they're still tricky. They're still a tricky jumping test, and you've got lots of runners in the way to sort of distract them. So, hey, if he wins, I'll know exactly where that performance has come from. But I'm the same with Graham. I'll be taking at that sort of price. I'll watch him.
Now, just imagine the scenes in Dr. Richard Newland's office right now. Gordon Elliott, he's running 9. It looks like Willie's going to have 6 or 7. Is it a potential turn-off, do you think, that these 2 superpowers having almost half the field?
A little bit. I don't think the bigger picture, the public are too fussed about it, to be honest. The people with the sweepstakes and having a bet, I don't think they give a monkeys. I'll come off early on air, I think, if a Jiggins Down Elliott horse wins. I mean, where do we go with that for the next hour?
To Ollie Bell, straight to Ollie Bell.
But one thing I really would ask for, Audie, and there's one in Mullins's yard and there's one in Elliott's yard, because when they look at the ground, I don't think Galvin will run, and I don't think Statler will run. Please, Ronnie is one of the nicest people in racing. Please don't declare them tomorrow. Please, if you know full well you're not going to run, please don't declare them. I get a sense that they might do. I just think bigger picture for the sake of the sport. Don't take up places when you're not going to run, because there's no reserves and a couple of people will miss out. And I think if I could plead for one thing over the next 24 hours, it'll be if you've no intention of running, please don't declare.
Does anyone know why they've been the reserves, Ed? Do you know why that's?
No, I don't actually. I don't. I don't quite get. There's obviously a reason for it, and it would just be such a shame, GC. It won't be Kitty's light, because Conflator's going to run on Friday, isn't he? So Kitty's is going to get in, but 2 others could miss out for a couple of horses you've got. I would imagine when they see the ground here, no intention of running, which would be such a shame. And Ronnie's such a great sport. I don't think if he was aware of that, he'd actually do that.
there's that interesting one of Marty Brussels, isn't there, Billy, that might sneak in the Kerry National win if they do.
And the boy, yeah.
Yeah.
No, the other one.
The other
the
one.
other one.
Sorry,
Desert Moor, was it?
Yeah.
Desert Moor House, yeah. But he'd be another one that the ground would be a big concern for him. I'm not sure deep ground is what he wants. But obviously he's been campaigned with the race in mind as well. So yeah, he's just kind of on the cusp at the moment. And Gavin Cromwell's Melina Girl as well is teetering, shall we say, down at the bottom. So she might get a run.
GC, you're not pro Iron Maximus from Team Mullins. He's got plenty of other arrows to fire, the likes of Meeting of the Waters, Capodanno. Anything else float your boat from the Close Sutton team?
Not especially. No, I think maximum stamina is going to be essential, and I think a couple of them might fall down. Even the horses I fancy, everybody knows I fancy Marla Mission, and I still do. But I can't be assured that he's tailor-made for an absolute grind like this. But I think he's going to give his supporters a really bold sight for a long way. Panda Boy, Billy touched on. DJ David Johnson's not here. He's a big Panda Boy man, has been for a long time. I think he's on the right track. One of the connections said he's got the lungs like a whale. He might need to be able to swim like one, but I think he's a big runner. And I do have a long shot for later on who might creep in and shouldn't be the price he is at the moment.
Billy, I like Meeting of the Waters. I love the running, the ultimate. Should I be worried? I don't think Mark Walsh had Iron Maximus as an option. I think that was given to Townend. He was choosing from the rest. But for him to have leapt on to, or not leapt on to, opted for Limerick Lace, would you say that as a negative for Meeting of the Waters?
Not necessarily, Dave, no. I wouldn't. I think you're correct. I don't think Mark was given the choice to ride Iron Maximus because Paul had ridden him before in the Irish National and he has never ridden him over fences. So I think they were keen to let Paul continue that association. Mark has gone for Limerick Lace, but I think it was a very difficult decision. I mean, Limerick Lace and Meeting of the Waters, a bit of a toss-up between the two of them. Both of them have really solid chances. And I suppose he has ridden Limerick Lace where he hasn't ridden Meeting of the Waters that much apart from Cheltenham. So maybe he's just felt a little bit of loyalty there. I don't know. But I certainly wouldn't, it wouldn't put me off Meeting of the Waters. I think he has ticks in a lot of the right boxes. Again, Stammen is a bit of an unknown. He seemed to stay fine at Cheltenham the last day, but this is you're putting another mile onto that. But apart from that, he's got a kind of a typical national profile really, and I certainly wouldn't put anyone off him. Yeah.
But in terms of Limerick Lace, she's got a huge stamina question to answer.
Well, I don't know. I mean, she has because she's unproven. She's only ever run at 3 miles once, and that was in the Tri-Town at Navan back at the start of the season where she finished second to Cocoa Beach. Certainly wasn't beaten for lack of stamina on that occasion. And if you look at her pedigree, she's related to, I Know the Way You're Thinking, who bolted up in the Kim Muir at Cheltenham. And plenty of her family do stay really well. So I don't think it's that much of a concern. She just hasn't been tried over those sort of trips. So again, I think she's got a real chance. I think if Mark can kind of smuggle her around for the first circuit, then she's one that could certainly come into her own the second lap. And she's one that would be on my shortlist, definitely.
And Phil, just finally on Team Mullins, Ruby Walsh, Capodanno was his pick of the Mullins team. He thinks he's going to be in the 3 in the National. Can you make a case for Capodanno?
A bit like I was saying earlier, I think he's a horse who'll always have a sort of big rating in him a certain amount of times. I know they didn't have the great prep with him, but he shaped like an on-stair in last year's race, and with even more testing ground this time around, I wouldn't be rushing to back him. And the fact he seems some way down the JP pecking order in terms of jockey bookings suggests they feel the same way.
Team Elliott now, Billy. Just the 9 to go. We won't go through them individually, but it seems increasingly that they're coming round in the ground to Delta Work as being they're potentially one of the leading players from the Elliott team. How do you see their squad?
I think it's a case of throw enough darts at the board and hope one of them sticks, Dave, to be honest. Galvin was the one of his that I really liked. Obviously the ground has gone against him, but I just felt that I long felt that Galvin was a national horse. Obviously he only got as far as the first last year, but I think if he'd run at Cheltenham, presumably he'd have finished in the first 2 or 3 in the cross country. He'd have been a much shorter price, but obviously the ground has gone against him. I hope he's declared. If he is, I'll have a few quid each way on him, but it's more than in hope than confidence at this stage. They do seem to be coming around to Delta Work. You can make a case for him. Whether he's as good as he was a couple of years ago, we don't know, because obviously he's had not an interrupted preparation, but again, he's missed his prep run at Cheltenham. That would have told us an awful lot more about him. But he has had 2 cracks at the National already. He did finish placing it 2 years ago, got brought down last year. not many have come back a third time and won a national, so that would temper enthusiasm slightly for me. And looking at the other Elliott runners, I'd put a big red X through the whole lot of them, to be honest. I couldn't fancy any of them. I don't think the Goffer will stay. I don't think I don't like Cocoa Beach has proven that he doesn't get the trip. The Goffer I don't think will stay, and the others just aren't good enough.
I mean, I started thinking Billy was going to tip a British horse to win. It'll be 1, 2, 3. I can't wait for the. We're getting there. We're getting there. And what I want, before I get your ideas of the winner, I'm going to ask you each for long shot in the race. Something you see running well at a big price on Saturday. Phil, I'll go for you first. Give us one, a juicy prize you think is going to win a big race in this national.
Well, I'm not sure if he's still a juicy price, but I flagged up Delta Work at 33 to 1 for the reasons if we do get an attritional race, the sort of tried and tested sort of street fight, if you like, with a lot of back class to draw on, I can see him staying on. I think back to that cross country chase when he beat Tiger Roll in absolutely bottomless ground. Stamina winning that day. And I think back to the first ever time I went to the National was 1980. Ben Nevis had been among the favourites for the previous year's National, got brought down at the chair, was completely forgotten about 12 months later, and he won at 40 to 1. And I wonder if something similar might happen with Delta Work, because he was like vying for favouritism all last winter. And he's been a bit forgotten about this time around. As Billy just said about Galvin, had he run at the cross-country chase where he was the pick of Jack Kennedy that day, he probably would have figured prominently. I think he'd have been a fraction of the odds he currently is.
Ed, one for Arthur Chamberlain. What do you like at a prize in this year's Nash?
Tiger Roll Chamberlain, I thought. I agree with what Phil said about I Am Maximus, but for me, there are two horses in the race order that could blow it apart. I Am Maximus might do it, but I share the concerns GC's got for his jumping. The other horse I think could do it is Nassalam on that ground. If he repeats what he did in the Welsh National, he could take some serious pegging back. I could see him being some way clear at a point in the race. I love his style of jumping for these fences out there. He almost hurdles them. He almost hurdles them at Chepstow. He's done it here before as well. He's going to love the ground. I think that the Gold Cup was just a gentle prep, if you like, for this. And I know he's been hammered by the handicapper, but round here, I think he could be pretty dangerous, particularly if he gets loose on the front. And he's just going to absolutely love the ground. He's one that you can put a tick by. And if he's anywhere near as good as he was at Chepstow, I think he's got a huge chance at 25 to 1.
GC, something at a price for you.
Well, yeah, got one at a price. I think he might creep in. Chambard for Venetia Williams and presumably Lucy Turner. Now, he hasn't fired his best shot on his last two runs at Haydock and the Festival. But if you go back to a gruesome day at Aintree before Christmas in the Beecher Chase, and he was really good. He just really enjoyed it. And it's that type of horse I'm looking for. The horse who can really roll up his sleeves on a rough day or rough ground. And if you watch him, when he comes around the home turn, he's got his 2 ears pricked, not one, 2 ears pricked. And he takes off again and he finds loads. So a horse who's won a Beecher Chase on very, very similar ground that he's likely to get at the weekend. I backed him at 100 yesterday. He soon went out to a bit bigger than that. So I've got a bit more on. And he's just the type of horse who I think, well, look at the price. Can he win it at the age of 12? Probably not. The odds tell you that. But can he run a bull race and have the in-running lads nibbling at, in the teens and even down to 10, 8, 9 at some point? Yes, he can. And he just strikes me as a 100 to 1 shot who should probably be much more like a 25 or 33 shot.
Billy, a long shot that's on your radar.
Well, I looked at the anti-post market about a week or two ago, Dave, and I thought Capadano was a massive price at 40s on Betfair. So I said, I'll have a couple of quid each way on him. You can now back him at 55s. So, but the other one that wasn't on my radar at all until about a week ago is Manila Indo, who's about 33 to 1. Phil was on about Delta Work having back class. Well, Manila Indo has it in spades. We know he jumps. We know he stays. He's just the kind of horse that could take to this test. I'd be surprised if he won it, but I could see him running really well, and I think he might sneak into a place.
Brilliant stuff. And now it's time to channel the thoughts on your winner. What's going to win the Randox Grand National? Ed, Tiger Roll Chamberlain. What's going to win the 2024 Randox Grand National?
I'm going to stick with Nassalam, Audie. He's not just my outside. I really think he's going to run a big race here. Why are you shaking your head?
Well, I'm not shaking my head. I mean, I put him up for the Welsh National. Thanks for the message. I will get back to you all in time.
I think we both did, didn't we, Audie?
But...
I think we both did, if you remember right.
So we did, yeah. I was after you as well, but I got them on.
Did we get Phil's outsider? Did I miss it? I have got my notebook at the ready.
Delta work.
Yeah, we did.
Delta work.
We did get Phil's outsider.
So I'm going to go with Nasalam. I backed Panda Boy after the weights came out, Audie, and I just worry about him getting home. I think he might be running on fumes from the Melling Road, would be my slight concern with him. So Nasalam's the one I fancy. Galliard de Leto, I think, will run really well. I think the mares have got a big chance this year of making a bit of history. So I'm going to stick with Nasalam as the winner.
Good job you added that. We're reworking a piece we wrote a few years ago, mares records in the Grand National, because there's one or two with chances. Billy, give us a Nash winner.
I'm sticking with the mares. I think Limerick Lace has a real chance. The fact that Mark Walsh is on her is certainly no handicap. So yeah, I just think she's a lovely profile. And okay, the distance is a concern, obviously, but I think she's a classy mare who's on the up, and I think she's got a great chance.
Phil?
Like Graham, I've been very keen on Marla Mission all winter. It's a toss-up between him and Meeting of the Waters. And as things we're getting nearer the day, I'm just siding with Meeting of the Waters. I think the situation with the jockeys, I think there's an element of the mixing and matching with horses they've teamed up with successfully in the past. And obviously Danny Mullins won the big Paddy Power chase over Christmas on him. So, yeah, I think I'm still siding just on Meeting of the Waters.
GC, File fans know over the weekend that Marla Mission was topping your shortlist. Is he still there despite the weather of the week?
He's joint top, Dave, now on my Lakewood Power rankings.
Breaking news.
With the Panda Boy. Yeah, I'm going to go Marla Mission, Panda Boy. I think he might, with that lightweight, I think he might relish the conditions and the trip. He's definitely one to keep a close eye on. Marla Mission, Panda Boy, Chambard for the wild one at a big price.
Great stuff. Now we're going to ask for final words on this.
What about you, Audie? What about you, Audie?
Well, Ed, as my shortlist was the 6th most read. We published 8 Grand National shortlists on Sporting Life. Mine was the 6th most read of the 8, which
still need to know 7 and 8 now.
I'm not naming them, but Ben Linfoot, if you're watching, thank you, mate. I was Meeting of the Waters to beat Panda Boy with Gallia de Leto, 3rd for the Skeltons. So, yeah, I think she'll win a massive race. Completely unexposed as a staying handicap chase, and that classic chase form's worked out well, hasn't it? So, I think she's the best of the British. I mean, it's such a strong team, it's hard to pick the best of the British, but I've managed it. I want 20 seconds from everybody. One horse that you're wary of in this year's National. One towards the top of the market that you're wary of that you couldn't have. Ed Chamberlain, you can go first.
You can't have.
Yeah, it's not for you.
Not for me, Clive.
This is so we can play it back after it's won. I'm going to have like 4 ready just in case.
Jeepers creepers. There's plenty I can't have. Oh, I love Corrick Rambler, but the price is horrible, isn't it? Really, really horrible price. I absolutely love the horse and love the connections, but I wonder what price he might not even go off favourite, I suppose. We'll see. But at the minute, not for me, Clive.
Not for me, Clive. Corrick Rambler. Billy, which British horse are you putting up?
You might be surprised to hear, Dave, and you as well, Ed, that it is Corrick Rambler. I can't have him for a variety of reasons. I thought he was 3rd in a 2-horse Gold Cup and was absolutely eyeballs out to finish 3rd. He's
That's
gone
so
up
unfair. He ran an absolute screamer.
Yeah, but sure, look at the way he crossed the line, Ed. And, he's up more than a stone from last year. Heavy ground as well. I couldn't have him on my mind for this year's National.
2 votes for Corrick Rambler. GC, are you a 3rd?
Well, tape this for trolling purposes, but I think that 2/3 of the field are not going to get round. Probably more like 3/4. There's some real big names just aren't going to get to the end of this race for one reason or another. And I Am Maximus is the one that I can see causing himself and possibly 1 or 2 others a few jumping problems. So if he wins, I lose.
There you are. Phil, we've got 2 Corrick Ramblers, 1 I Am Maximus. What's the one that Phil Turner is wary of in this year's match?
Well, I'm with Graham on this. I'm wary of him for 2 reasons. Because I actually could see him winning, but you have to take a view here. And for the same reasons, Graham, I'm wary of I Am Maximus. Can we just mention one horse we haven't mentioned? We're on about like Grand National, but they're going for a 2nd win in the race. No one's mentioned Noble Yates.
Yes, good point.
And I think he's been a bit forgotten about because I didn't think he ran at all badly in the stairs. I thought it was a false price in that race, and we're on about it's going to be a real stamina test. I think he could come into and be a player again. So I wouldn't ignore him. I'd hate us to go through a whole Grand National preview and not mention Noble Yates.
Who was the last horse to carry top weight to win a national, Phil?
Oh, don't ask me. It'll probably Red Rum. Don't quote me on that, but I imagine it'd be Red Rum 77, would it have been? Or 74. Right. 74, I think.
There we are. That's our thoughts on the Randox Grand National. Those ones to be wary of will be replayed shortly after the race if the inevitable happens. Now, it must be the most improved festival in recent times, the Aintree. The 3 days now. And this year in particular is fantastic. I think trainers such as Henry de Bromhead realising they don't particularly want to take Willie on at Punchestown with the A-listers. So we've got a few horses we might not have had in other years. Ed Chamberlain, day one, it's some really, really interesting clashes.
It's good, isn't it? I think it's a day to say there's a lot of talk about the title in Liverpool. Because the trainers' title is going to get a lot of coverage over the next few days with Skelton as Arsenal. Are Arsenal top of the league? They are, aren't they? With the big guns.
They are.
Are you an Arsenal fan, Billy?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Oh my goodness! It's an absolute
so Skelton's Arsenal, and then Nichols, I suppose, is Liverpool, and Willie is Man City, I suppose.
What big spender!
And it just makes it so interesting. And then you throw the Hendo horses back into the mix. And all the other Irish horses coming over, it just makes it absolutely, genuinely fascinating. It's really, really good. And there's just countless good races, isn't there?
I love the claim that Nichols isn't bothered about the trader's title. That he's all about Harry Cobden this year. It's not even on his mind. The finger will be out and the fist will be pumped.
Yes, Paul.
Yeah, a couple of winners this week. Let's talk about some of those races. GC, Big Dave Henderson will know by Thursday evening, I think, where we are with the Seven Barrows team. Let's talk Shishkin v Jerry Colomb in the bowl. That's a really interesting clash.
It is. I can't find too many holes in Jerry. We know he had a pretty tough race at last year's Cheltenham Festival, bounced out of it and won a Grade 1 Novice Chase at Aintree. He comes here after a career best. Really, really good performance in the Gold Cup. Another angle I'll be trying to play to my advantage this week, lads, is I don't like horses who can nudge one on the mile-make course. I think the chase course. I think it's a very punishing course for horses who make mistakes. Doubly so, I think, this week. He's such a nimble, efficient, accurate jumper, Jerry Colomb. As regards Shishkin, won the race last year, just got the better of the formerly cement-footed Ahoy Senor. I've upgraded him to frustrating now. He's back again. Love to see Shishkin run well. As goes Sagino, so goes Shishkin's price, I think. If Sagino happened to bomb out, then confidence in Shishkin, rightly or wrongly, might ebb and flow. But I do like these really big Grade 1s this week, but when you get fairly smallish fields, the market's not going to make too many ricks, and I'm finding it hard to find too many chinks in the Jerry Colomb armour.
Bill, what are you expecting from Shishkin? You're the only one on this panel we haven't heard endlessly about Shishkin all season. He's been a regular talking point. Where are you with him right now?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a proper race really for him. It's really going to be a litmus test to see, how sort of credible a Gold Cup contender he is, because for the points that Graham just made, I mean, Jerry Colomb is pretty bomb-proof. He's got his sort of optimum conditions, and if Shishkin can beat him, and we're fairly confident Jerry Colomb would have run somewhere near his best, and we know where we stand with him. But I mean, look, he is a bit frustrating for all the reasons everyone knows. He's not the easiest ride, perhaps in a race, but he'll sort of be staying on at the death. The chances are he's probably missed his best chance of winning the Gold Cup now, because just age is going to get in the way sooner rather than later. So from a betting viewpoint, I'll be siding with Jerry Colomb, but I expect Shishkin to give him a proper race, and it's one I'll be probably pre the National. It's the race I'm most looking forward to, because it's should be a proper Grade 1.
Billy, Jerry Colomb described as bomb-proof there. Can you see any holes in him going into this?
Not really. The only thing that would concern me was the fact that he did have a hard race in the Gold Cup. Obviously, Shishkin missed it. But as Graham said, he had a hard race at Cheltenham last year. It didn't seem to leave any mark on him. And yeah, he seems to have loads of ticks. Shishkin, I'd be slightly concerned about the ground over this trip. Yeah. If it is heavy ground at this trip, it'll certainly play to Jerry Colomb's strengths more than Shishkin's. And the interesting one in the race, no, he has loads to find on form, but Corbett's Cross is a fascinating runner. He was really impressive in the National Hunt Chase at Cheltenham. you know, he could be a Gold Cup horse in 12 months' time. This will tell us an awful lot about it. But I'm fascinated to see how he gets on here. I think he could run really well. But like you said, on all known form, I think Jerry Colomb is going to be very hard to beat.
Well, that's the key thing actually about you talking about Nicky Henderson. It's like obviously they've had a bug the last month or so, but traditionally when the ground does get really deep, they don't have a great record in them, do they? I mean, there was that time when they didn't have the sufficient all-weather gallop to sort of deal with it, but that would be a concern. You know, you look at Willie Mullins; they, as a rule, they all tend to really go in deep ground, but the Henderson yard don't. So that would be a concern. You know, coupled with the fact obviously that they've been under a cloud for the last month.
Ed, what have we got for the manifesto? The Turners and the Arkle form coming together. It's Nichols, or it's Skelton v Nichols. It's Grey Dawning v Slimline, Ginny's Destiny. Ilete Tom's in there as well. Now, how do you see the manifesto, Ed Chamberlain?
Good race, isn't it? Good race. It's a pity we can't show it live, really. I think it'll all come down to the jumping between these. And Grey Dawning was breathtakingly good at Cheltenham, and hopefully will be so again. I think Ilete Tom will be much more dangerous on a flat track here rather than at Cheltenham. It's a race to watch and enjoy this. It'll all come down to the jumping, which is so important round here. And talking of novices, Audie, have you read Mark Howard's copy of his excellent supplement?
Oh, no,
Last novice to win the bowl. Last novice to win the bowl.
Hollywell, was it?
Escarta Feig in 1998.
Yeah.
So stats are against him. I don't know how many have tried, man.
Not many would have run though.
I look forward to seeing that one on ITV. I'm sensing that's going to be used in the build-up.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, the best lines, as GC knows, the best lines are always stolen.
Bob out is what we prefer. GC, so we're going to see Grey Dawning, we're going to see Ginny's Destiny, we're going to see Ilete Tom. So we know where two of them just about sit. There isn't much between those two. Is there any chance of the Irish horse spoiling the party?
I don't particularly fancy Ilete Tom. He has a fairly low margin for error jump style. He jumps low, and I could certainly see him nudging a couple and getting off the bridle. Stamina could be a key thing for him. Stamina is the key question. We know that Grey Dawning stays 3 miles really well from his Warwick success. He's 2-1 against Ginny's Destiny. He got the better of a really good scrap with Ginny's in a good hurdle at Warwick as a novice. Bit unlucky when Ginny's beat him at Cheltenham when he made that bad mistake to Art. And they had a terrific tussle in the Turners. Ginny's Destiny, I think, is probably the best jumping novice around. He is mustard at a fence, but he's got an extra 3 and a bit furlongs to go on day 1 of Aintree, and Grey Dawning probably has the more proven stamina. So again, the market's right. I do think it's probably a two-way go. I don't fancy Ilete Tom. Hard to make a strong case for Blow Your Wad and Colonel Harry.
Billy, could you make a case for Ilete Tom?
I couldn't really. I think he's just probably maybe just a tad short of Grade 1 class, to be honest. I know he's won a couple down through the years, but I think when it comes to the crunch in these really good races, he just tends to come up short. I don't think the trip, the 2 miles and 3 will be any issue to him. I actually fancy Nichols' horse, Ginny's Destiny. I think around there at this distance. I'm surprised Grey Dawning isn't stepping up to 3 miles this week. I was really expecting him to do that. So I think the Nichols horse might take a bit of catching around there, to be honest.
I misspoke there, Dave. I was leading people to believe it was 3 miles. I'm effectively assuming it's going to ride like a 3 mile race because of the conditions. So
a proper test, yeah. Phil, the 4-year-old hurdle, Sergino, top rated on time form from Kajase. How do you pronounce it, Billy? Kajase, is it?
Kajase is how I pronounce it, but I've heard it pronounced about 7 different ways, Dave. So anything you say is correct.
The Willie Mullins horse in the Kenny Alexander Seal to finish second in the Tri-Field. She's got Grade 1 form and a mare's allowance. Is this, does Sergino need to be absolutely cherry ripe to beat her?
Well, it's just, I mean, he did look a special horse on both of his starts. It's just the doubt with the yard, isn't it? I'm fairly sure he'd have won that triumph had he turned up in the form we've been showing earlier in the season, probably run into an even bigger figure. So, look, you know, if you go in and wading at the sort of price he's at, it obviously comes with risks attached, but I think he's fundamentally the best horse in the field, and I just hope he gets to show it.
Do you see, it's a shade of odds on. I think it will tell us an awful lot about what's to come for the rest of the week from that too.
Yeah, well, different themes. Hendo's definitely one of them. Sergino, Shishkin, John Bond are potential start players, but he's only had half a dozen 7 runners since Cheltenham. He won an egg and spoon race at even money, a maiden hurdle, I think it was, at Ludlow. So we've got very little to go on. I take a slightly different view than Phil. From a price point of view, Carjesi has value to me. We know she's a good filly. We know she handles testing ground well. We know she's a notably sweet traveller. And I think she's BHA 141 getting the fillies allowance. She traded at 1.14 in the Triumph until she was worn down by pretty good, potentially very good stablemate. So I think I'm probably going to be having a few quid on the filly, Carjesi, and hoping that she can travel like a potential winner again and get out at a short price.
Before we move on to day 2, a few news lines.
He'll bolt up Sergino tomorrow, I promise you.
That's
10 legs.
That's all. What was that? 10 legs.
He will
runs
hose
badly.
up tomorrow.
Shishkin might be a non-runner.
Oh, what a game. The greatest game. And it continues to give. So 1 or 2 news lines we can discuss. Ed, a jockey retirement. Aidan Coleman announced his retirement on on Sunday. People knew it was coming, but it was such a powerful interview. I don't know if you've seen it. And a really good career, and a jockey and a person people have got a lot of time for.
What a nice guy overall. What a proper human being Aidan Coleman is. And I just feel so sorry for him. Having had a bit of an insight with the Injured Jockeys Fund as to what he's tried to do to get back, I just feel desperately, desperately sorry for him. This game can be absolutely brutal at times. And for him to have that forced upon him breaks your heart a bit, to be honest, Audie. I know there's been tragedy elsewhere and it's tough. It is really tough, but I feel so sorry for him. On Nick Luck's show on Sunday, my heart just went out to him. I thought he handled it brilliantly. You could see the emotion. And he's been desperately unlucky. But what a career he's had. I'm so pleased that the Grade 1 glory came eventually. He had to wait, but he was part of that Paisley Park story. He was part of the John Bond story. And I hope the next chapter works out for him. He's a great lad.
Put the kettle on as well, Ed.
Yeah, absolutely. And spoke so well after Put the Kettle on. They're one of the best interviews of recent times there.
He's got quite an interesting national tradition as well. Remember the Druid's nephew absolutely tanking along about 7 or 8 years ago in front when he came down, I think 5 out. Second on Balco de Flo at 100 to 1. And I don't know whether this has been mentioned in media recently. Haven't seen it all. Go back to 2009. I think he had the choice. He was riding for Venetia all the time between Monmouth and Stan. And he went for Stan, the 50 to 1 chance rather than the 100 to 1 chance. And when you think of, Aidan effectively potentially missed the national winner, Liam Treadwell got it. Poor Liam Treadwell's not here anymore. And it's the end of Aidan's career. But he's such an articulate guy. When I watched that interview, I thought, it's a bit like the military when riders are finishing their career, isn't it? They're anxious about being in the outside world. Believe me, if he wanted to, he would thrive in the outside world, in business, or I think his family are from the teaching profession. He could do anything he wants. He's such a bright, likable, charismatic fella. He's got loads to offer still.
And do you see a line on Paddy Brennan? He heading into retirement imminently, we believe, probably off the back of a big win, even if he had one at Aintree, perhaps. He's considering an appeal against a ban at Wincanton. The appeal might actually be heard after he's retired, which would be one of the great BHA appeals. That could be fast-tracked. That could be one of the fast-track folder. Have you seen the rate? Would you give him any chance?
Yeah.
I think they're looking for the penalty to be reduced, is what the appeal would be for.
That was a bad segment. Now, that yard is easy to like. Super communicators, O'Brien, etc. Brennan's a fascinating character. You cannot be riding horses like that. You just can't. I know, they were worried that she might race freely, but they got the maximum penalties they could for schooling in public. They were sailing very close to the wind as regards intentionally stopping a horse there. She would have gone mighty, mighty close with any amount of effort from the saddle. So you just can't defend it. It was a very, very strong case of schooling in public, punished accordingly. And don't forget, if you appeal, they can strengthen the penalty as well as reduce.
I wonder if they can ban him as being a TV pundit or something. Could they extend the ban to his career outside of the saddle? That's the only way they might be able to get hold of him. Billy, prize money, it's our specialist subject in the UK. Jockeyville racecourses reducing their contribution because of the lack of footfall at Cheltenham, or one of the contributory factors this year. And 1 or 2 movements about the levels of prize money in Ireland too. It looks like you're stealing even that from, isn't it?
Yeah, To be honest, Dave, it's not an issue that I've been keeping abreast of. I did see Kevin Blake had a piece on it the other day about prize money 11s of Ireland, and we need to keep an eye on them. Like I said, it's not something I've been keeping up with, so maybe it's best to ask one of the other lads that question.
Do you see, what was your thoughts when did you hear Nevin Truesdale interviewed?
Yeah, not shocked, because you can only try to balance the books based on your projections, and it sort of brings me back to the idea of Premier Racing and shoving more money at the higher end, which is okay in principle, but it comes at a cost. And the main point to make here is there just isn't much money to go around anymore. So I think British Racing has to focus on what it does well and accept that there's not going to be a major influx of prize money in the near future. In fact, there could be a few more reductions.
And Ed, what are you hearing about the crowds at Aintree? What they're expecting through the turnstiles this week?
Good. It'll be a sellout on Saturday for sure. And it's a meeting. We've talked about the racing itself, but it's growing off the track as well. Fantastic community event they had here last week. Lots going on today. And then tomorrow's the Celebrate Liverpool Day. And there'll be lots of local heroes, and there'll be a fantastic crowd. I remember when I first came here, it was very low key on the Thursday and Friday. A little bit later than you, Phil. Used to go and party down at the Canal Turn on the Saturday. I remember I had no idea Seagram had won until about an hour after the race. But it's just growing and growing, Audie. I think the crowds here will be fantastic, and the racing will help that. Ladies' Day on Friday is one of the big social days in the calendar up here. It's just getting bigger and better, in contrast to what's happening elsewhere, it must be said.
And the weather's getting better, which is a real relief, isn't it? After, because it's been so.
No, I want dreadful weather and people inside watching telly. I want to rule the world, you GC.
That dream still lives on, Ed. 1 year you'll get it.
You keep getting heat waves. It's been a heat wave for the last 5 years.
Phil, let's talk about Fridays, actually. We've got the final days. We're not going to go into great detail, but that Melling Chase, John Bond stepping up to 2.5 and waiting in the wings, Pete Dory, Protector at Envoy proper race, 4 against Hendo's charge.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously we'll have a full day's racing, a sample size to how the yard's going, but I mean, John Bond, I got the impression he was pulled out. There was actually nothing wrong with him. They were just uneasy about the way that the yard runners were going. So, and I think he's probably been crying out for a step up in trip. And I think he's just probably, if he's on song, a notch above these for all that they're good horses and they keep turning up and facing each other. But if on song, John Bond should be able to beat these, provided he stays okay, which I think he should. I think, if anything, he should improve for the trip.
Billy, obviously it's early days. We've only just got the final field. So anything that you're looking forward to on Friday? They've got Melling, there's the Topham, which is always a great spectacle.
I've got the winner of that. Don't worry about that.
Wait, stay tuned for that. We've got a couple of Grade 1 novice hurdles, Grade 1 novice chase. Anything on your radar for that Friday, Billy?
Yeah, well, the Grade 1 novice chase doesn't look like a Grade 1 at all to me. Or you've got, I know the way you're thinking, and Hartwood, 2 handicap winners at the top of the ratings there. The novice hurdle looks a cracker. Mystical Power and Firefox taking on Golden Ace. That should be a really, really good race. I like Mystical Power a lot. I backed him at Cheltenham. I thought he was going to win at the last. I'm going to stick with him. Just going back to Thursday, Ardy, really fancy Impere Pass in the Aintree hurdle. I can't understand why he's not favoured ahead of Bob Ollinger. I just don't
agree with that.
He appreciated making the running at all at Leopardstown the last day. And his 2 runs prior to that, behind Tehupo and Stateman, that looks like rock solid form to me. So he's probably my bet of the week, to be honest with you. And the other Grade 1 novice hurdle on the Friday card, the 3-mile race, I'd be taking on the Jukebox Man. He's top rated with time form. He's the one to beat in the race, but I felt he had a really tough race at Cheltenham. I just think that might have left a mark. It's a quick enough turnaround. And I think the likes of Reed and Tommy Wrong, who clearly didn't run his race there, Shanna Bob comes into the race fresh. There's a couple of others there as well. I think there's enough in the field to take on the Jukebox Man there.
Billy, can I just ask you about, I know the way you're thinking. Is that Kim Muir performance for real? Because, he's got a BHA rating of 158, pretty high time form rating, but it was certainly a mixed bag in terms of his jumping, wasn't it?
Oh, well, look... After 2 fences, I was wondering whether Derek O'Connor would pull him up, because he looked like he was going nowhere early on in the race. He got him into a lovely rhythm. He was very impressive at the end of it, as you say. He won off a mark of 145, so you can see why the handicappers put him up to that. But like you, I need to see him reproduce it. Now, he mightn't have to improve to win a Grade 1, which doesn't sound logical really, but they found such a weak race for him here. Hartwood, the one his main rival on ratings, Hartwood, also a handicap winner, but he won his handicap at Leopardstown off 136.
Yeah.
So, he has plenty to improve. Broadway Boys in the race as well. Obviously, he's going to give us a good line. He's a graded performer, but I'm a bit like you, with I know the way you're thinking. I think there's a very good horse in there, but I'd just like to see him reproduce that Cheltenham effort, because, like you said, it was a kind of a remarkable run, really.
Ed, I've readied the pen. You've got the Topham winner. I'm ready to write.
Well, I was all set to back Life in the Park, who was my eye catcher, who I backed at Cheltenham, but I think the ground's gone against him. I think he'd want much better ground than this, the De Brom head team. And your darling, Audie, has been targeted this for a long time. And the Vesty colours, for a trainer who's having a great season. And after a break, your darling is absolutely deadly. And he won at Ascot, 100 and something days ago. Immediately, trainer comes out and says the Topham's the target. I think he's got a massive chance. Prominent, good jumper. Your darling, Sergino's the bet of the week. He's going to win by a mile tomorrow. And then your darling next best.
Oh, I can even get a graphic with those on as well. Get ready to use. GC, Friday thoughts outside of that novice chase for you?
Well, like Billy, I'm a little bit wary of, I know the way you're thinking, and I think he's going to be a short price, and I think he's got the capacity to have a bit of a hard time at the fences. And Chianti Classico, now officially rated 154 after his Ultima win, just looks a really solid horse. I think it's early days to be talking about Gold Cups, etc., but it's not too early to think that he's a major chance. Uncomplicated, good jumper, very, very soft ground on day one when he won at Cheltenham. He'll handle the conditions, and I think he might be the one to beat in that race.
We've got a little bit of time to look ahead to Saturday. We're playing without the final declaration, obviously. Ed, one thing that struck me, the McGull moving to be the race after the Nash. It's a very different look and feel to the card without that.
It's a different looking field today, isn't it?
You're off the air by then, aren't you?
Oh, I'll be heading home. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was for TV. I hadn't realised. It's not even
which makes it the challenge for us is what do you do with winning connections post Nash? It'll be interesting to see what happens, because obviously with a good race to come afterwards. So we will wait and see. But yes, it's going to be different Saturday. It'll be interesting to see how the timings work, and everything else that's going to happen on National Day. I'm really looking forward to it, but there's a bit of trepidation there as well. I must admit.
I'll be leading the press room rebellion if there isn't the press conference in the media centre. We all sat up and clapping as they're coming. It's one of the most touching moments of the year. There we go. We've got some Grade 1 action. There's the Aintree hurdle. Interesting first sight of Caldwell Potter, Billy, for Paul Nicholls. I don't think he said he was very fat when he joined him, but how exciting is this fellow for this first British star?
Well, he's hugely exciting, obviously, and the fact that he cost 740 grand at the sales, everybody's going to be keeping an eye on him. It looks like he's going to be starting off in a pretty strong race. Hopefully, all of these will turn up, because the entries are fantastic. I mean, this is potentially one of the best races of the week. If the likes of Slade Steele, brighter days ahead. Willie's got 4 in the race. Jimmy Desai is one I'd be really keen on if he runs here. But Caldwell Potter I think he has a bit to prove, Dave, to be quite honest with you. I was going down through his races this morning. He won a 25-runner maiden hurdle at Navan. Only 2 of those in behind have come out and won since. He won that Future Champions at Leopardstown. The only horse that came out of that race to have won since was Absurd, who won the county hurdle. He was pulled up that day at Leopardstown, never really got competitive. So I think his form is maybe not as good as it possibly looks on paper. I think he's got a little bit to prove. Obviously, Nicholls will want to be making a bit of a splash first day out. He won't want him getting beaten. But if you look at that Caldwell dispersal sale, the next 3 top horses, Field Door, Pied Piper, Staffordshire, not have all failed to win a race since. So there's going to be a bit of pressure on the connections of Caldwell Potter. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was turned over, because this looks a really hot race.
It's a good job. I saw the bidding at 750 for our syndicate, wasn't it? We didn't go one more. GC, anything for you on that Saturday?
Yes. Ed will be in the car on the M62, is it, heading towards the M6. In the McGull Novices Chase. Keep an eye. I think he might be an overpriced horse, hard to be sure. Jello for Venetia Williams and Charlie Deutsch. I thought he ran a super race in the Turners. He was pestering Genie's Destiny the whole way through. Couldn't go with them off the bend, but didn't lose any ground from between the last two. And I'm guessing that Founder 50 is going to be very, very popular. One of the themes this week, Gordon is rolling in with the A-team, perhaps bar Irish Point, but Jerry Calombe, Firefox, Brighter Days Ahead, Tearpoo, Founder 50. I think Founder 50 is bound to be popular, but I think Jello, he's got very good handicap form, very good soft ground form, good jumper, good Aintree form as well. He won a tidy handicap when he beat Master Chewy there before Christmas. Ed, leave a $5 each way behind for Jello in the McGull when you're in the Rolls Royce on the way home.
It's a Bentley, GC. Sorry,
I'll put it on there, but I do want the cash up front. Just to be clear, the cash up front needs to have been handed over. Phil, your Saturday thoughts, early Saturday thoughts. What's on your radar?
Nothing much, because I haven't really seen what the Stern handicap chases are one I like to have a look at, but there's no real shape to the field. Having said that, of the grade ones, I'm a big fan of Tearpoo, so if he turns up, I think it'll be very, very hard to beat. Just getting back to the Friday, I actually agree with Ed. I do think Ben Pauling will train the winner of the Topham, but he's gone for the wrong horse. I think Shake 'em Up Harry will be a fantastic sight over these fences.
Oh, definitely.
The prominent star is what you need, and I think he'll be very, very hard to peg back. In a race which actually isn't as strong as it looked like it was going to be. A lot of the fancy ones came out of the 5-day stage, probably because of the ground, worries about that. And I totally see the case with Your Darling, and I think he'll travel like a dream for a long way, but he's not going to like that Aintree long running. And I don't think he'll be passing his stablemate. So hopefully the Pauling Yard will win it, but hopefully it'll be Shake 'em Up Harry, not Your Darling.
And there we go. Our thoughts. Ed, final word to you. In all the build-up to, Cheltenham, it's obsessive from sort of November through to March. Sometimes lose focus is just how great this week actually is at Aintree, how great the National is. It'd be great to just celebrate that again this year.
Yeah, and we can't hide away from it. There's going to be an awful lot of interest away from racing in what happens on Saturday, and let's hope it's a really good National, because that was a difficult watch, that first circuit last year, and I share your fears. And it would be nice for all of us if we get a really good, feel-good story. For me, it feels like the Irish battalions, if you like, the Irish Goliaths against the British Davids. We've talked about a few of them, but you chuck in there some great stories. Late Night Pass, the coverage the Ellis family have had in the build-up, and Gina's dad, who was 10th behind Little Polvier. There's some lovely stories in there. The Max riding in the race, and obviously there's been loads about Kitty's Light and Betsy and her sister Tilly are missing school to come up on Friday to judge the Style Awards, which I think is one of the most lovely touches by Aintree. So there's a lot of positives going on. I think it's really important, as I started this podcast, Audie, that we're all on the front foot. We don't need to be defensive about what's happening. This is a magnificent event and a race that's loved all around the world. And that's what we should be talking about. And I hope we're still talking about that on Sunday and Monday.
And don't forget, my 1, 2, 3 was Meeting of the Waters, Panda Boy, Galidoletto. Spotting Life features, you can still click on the story as well, get me up those rankings from 6 most popular. Like all sorts of other. Cannot wait for the 3 days at Aintree. Thanks to Phil, thanks to Ed, thanks to Billy and to GC. And would you believe we'll be back next week looking ahead to the Craven meeting at Newmarket.
Download the Sporting Life app for the best racing coverage, including live racing blogs, fast results, stable tours, trainer and jockey interviews, expert opinion and tips.